The jury room door swung open, and a heavy wave of tension swept in. My heart felt like it was about to leap out of my chest as everyone stood up. The jurors' eyes followed my every step, missing nothing. The gavel struck, sharp and echoing, pounding in my head like a racing heartbeat. The judge raised the verdict and spoke slowly with commanding authority. "We find in favor of the plaintiff. Damages awarded, $900,000. I could hardly breathe. $900,000. Everything spun in my head, a thunderclap in the middle of a sunny afternoon. My hands trembled, sweat trickling down my wrists, soaking my stiff shirt. The opposing counsel pressed their lips together, panic flashing in their eyes as they glanced repeatedly at their client, whispering something I couldn't catch. I distinctly heard one word: unbelievable. The rustle of paper echoed as a clerk quickly flipped her documents. Bright sunlight streamed through the window, forcing me to squint, but I dared not look away from the jury. I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms, a reminder to myself that I was here and I had won after months of tension. A sigh drifted from the back row. You did it," a colleague whispered. But the sound was nearly swallowed by the heaviness in the courtroom. I scanned the room and saw eyes filled with empathy, worry, and astonishment from everyone around me. I didn't expect it to be this much," I stammered, my voice shaking. That's the justice you deserve," my attorney replied, a thin but proud smile on his face. In that moment, all the pressure, sleepless nights, and fears of injustice crystallized into the figure the jury had just pronounced. Yet alongside the relief was a lingering question: what would happen next? I thought it was finally over, but in reality, everything was just beginning. I worked as a software technician at a small tech company in California in 2022. The job demanded absolute precision, long hours, and even entire weekends spent troubleshooting. I took pride in consistently meeting deadlines, earning the trust of both colleagues and clients. Every bug fixed, every system update flawlessly executed felt like a personal victory. Each morning, before stepping into the office, I had to wait my turn to clock in. The card reader emitted a sharp, tense beep, sounding like a cold reminder. Every mistake is being monitored. The atmosphere in the lobby was heavy, making my heart beat faster than usual. My workstation was small and cramped, papers piled up in chaotic stacks, and the old computer screen cast a cold blue light directly into my eyes. Neon lights from the ceiling reflected off the stark white walls, creating a suffocating feeling, as if I were trapped in a glass cage with no escape. Hard chairs and closely ranged desks forced me to move cautiously, as if even a tiny mistake would be noticed. The servers constantly emitted small error sounds, repeating endlessly. The beep, 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 beep was tense like a tightened string, making my heart contract each time I heard it. Phones rang, notifications blinked incessantly, and project countdown timers reminded me that not a single minute could be wasted. Every email I sent could trigger a reprimand, every minor report could be scrutinized, and the sensation of being constantly watched was like a shadow following my every move. Even when I tried to focus, the rhythmic sound of keyboards, mouse clicks, and rustling papers merged into a continuous symphony of pressure, exhausting my body and straining my mind. Each passing day felt like walking through an invisible maze of tension, where a single mistake could render all my efforts and contributions meaningless. This workspace was not just a place of employment, it was a constant challenge, eroding every breath and heartbeat, gradually pushing employees' spirits to their limits. During my time there, I repeatedly demonstrated my dedication. On nights when critical projects were near deadlines, I stayed at the office until midnight, fixing every error to ensure smooth software operation, preventing the company from losing contracts worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Each success, I hoped, would be recognized, yet often I received only casual reminders or cold stares from my manager. Beyond daily responsibilities, I self-studied new technologies to improve our products. I spent my own money on books, materials, and online courses, hoping to help the company advance faster than competitors. Yet whenever I presented new ideas, the manager would say, "Not necessary. We're fine as we are," as if all my extra learning and initiative were useless. I also volunteered to fix software bugs for certain special clients, helping them avoid serious issues. These tasks were unpaid, but I valued them for building the company's reputation. Yet the manager saw it as a waste of company time, even reminding me to focus on my main duties, as if any contribution beyond the required work was wrong. Every moment of dedication, every extra hour, every bit of knowledge gained seemed swallowed by the cold, strict atmosphere. Still, I continued, believing that diligence and commitment would protect both the company and myself. But the pressure kept mounting, and eventually, even a small incident was enough to ignite the accumulated tension. My direct manager rarely acknowledged these efforts. His criticisms were often sarcastic, leaving me no chance to respond. The labor lawyer I hired when things became tense had years of experience and constantly reminded me I was not alone. In contrast, the company's lawyer was cold, easily shifting from subtle threats to fake friendliness, constantly reminding me that everything was extremely serious. Some colleagues silently sympathized, while others, fearing job loss, remained silent. Though the company was small, it was ambitious, constantly competing with major tech corporations. A tense atmosphere was ever present. Employees were monitored in detail, every email could be scrutinized, and meetings often felt like interrogations. Initially, the incident seemed minor, a cruel comment, an unreasonable email, and I brushed them off, thinking, it's normal, it's just work. Gradually, though, the pressure became unbearable. Sleepless nights, constant tension, and deteriorating health reminded me that this was no longer just work. My body and mind began to feel the weight of invisible chains tightening around me. I remember moments that made me question how loyalty and dedication could be met with indifference and disdain. I stayed until 2 a.m. to fix a critical system error, preventing client disruptions. The next day, I discovered a serious software security risk and wanted to warn before it escalated. Cautiously, I approached the manager. Do you realize this is a serious risk? Clients could be severely affected if not addressed in time. Don't overdo it. It's a minor error, nothing to worry about, he replied, dismissing my concern with a wave of his hand. That memory still hurts. My dedication, sleepless nights, vigilance all returned as contempt or indifference. Yet I persisted, believing that careful work would protect both the company and myself. These small but persistent conflicts simmered, creating a constant current of tension I could not ignore. Every morning felt heavier than the last. Every email seemed like a trap. I began to fear routine tasks, worrying that any mistake could trigger another cycle of ridicule or unreasonable reprimand. The workplace tension did not erupt suddenly but crept in quietly, like smoke gradually thickening. Unreasonable reminder emails started appearing, such as, please double-check your work. It seems you missed a small detail, yet upon inspection, there were no mistakes. Each line felt like an invisible stab, reminding me that every action was being watched. Meetings often became stages for ridicule. Once, my manager unexpectedly pulled me to the center of the room, presenting an old error from the previous week, mocking me in front of the team. A few colleagues' stifled laughs, forced smiles, or frowns made the air even more suffocating. I stood there, heart pounding, struggling to suppress both anger and helplessness. Some colleagues avoided my gaze, yet in fleeting moments, I caught glimpses of sympathy or worry. They recognized the injustice but feared speaking up. Loneliness gradually became an ally, but each workday reminded me of the growing invisible pressure. Every small detail, every gesture, every email acted as a continuous warning. No one truly had my back, and any mistake, even a non-existent one, could be used as a pretext for punishment. This simmering conflict, combined with unrecognized dedication, grew heavier, signaling that a storm was inevitable. Then, even the smallest incident, a missed alert, a misunderstood comment, was enough to trigger an explosion of all the pent-up tension. What once seemed minor suddenly escalated into a full-blown conflict, and I realized there was no turning back. I had crossed an invisible line, and the fight for justice was about to begin. The first incident seemed to start out normally, or at least that's what I thought. A serious software bug appeared, with the potential to affect a major client. I discovered it immediately, reported it promptly, and began fixing it. Instead of being recognized, I was directly blamed by my manager. I was the cause. The accusation was sharp, swift, and relentless. I had caused the problem. The motive behind their actions was clear, yet infuriating. Money, reputation, and pressure from the board hung over every decision. The company needed a scapegoat to protect its image and satisfy the executives. In that environment, responsibility had little to do with the truth. Everything revolved around appearances. I had been chosen to carry the blame. The sequence of events escalated quickly. It began with a series of emails, mysterious, threatening, and sometimes illogical. Lines like, please double-check your work, it seems you may have overlooked a detail, kept appearing. Even though there were no actual errors, each message carried an implicit threat. Failure, whether real or imagined, would come with a cost. My inbox became a minefield, each click a potential danger. The sense of unwarranted guilt haunted me like a ghost. I wondered, did I make a mistake I can't remember? Every email, every phone call, every glance from a colleague made me doubt myself. Deep down, I knew I had done the right thing. I reported, warned, and fulfilled my responsibilities. But reason was crushed under the pressure, and the feeling of guilt lingered, tightening my chest whenever I recalled the initial software bug. My body reacted sharply to the relentless mental stress. My heart raced like a war drum whenever I opened an email. My hands trembled uncontrollably at the sight of vague yet threatening lines. Headaches pounded as if a hammer struck my temples, clouding my thoughts and making concentration nearly impossible. Sleepless nights left my body exhausted, and I felt as though the tension in me was like a stretched string, ready to snap at any moment. When I received the court summons, the sensation peaked. My heart seemed to drop into my stomach. Cold sweat ran down my spine. Hands went numb. My head spun, and my legs felt too weak to support me. Each breath came in short gasps. Every movement felt weighed down by the weight of the world. I stood there, trying to calm myself, yet fear seeped through every fiber, making each step in the office heavy and laborious. Every click on an email, every phone ring was a gut-wrenching reminder that I was teetering on the edge between control and collapse. My body and mind battled in tandem. One part wanted to flee, the other fiercely fought to defend the truth. The physical tension and mental strain blended, creating an uncomfortable energy that highlighted that this case was not merely a legal challenge, but a fight for my very mental and physical survival. Inner conflict grew more intense. Part of me wanted to run away, to escape all of this, to evade this unreasonable pressure. But another part, deep in my soul, insisted that I could not remain silent, that the truth could not be distorted. This struggle made every decision feel heavy. My hands shook when I picked up the phone. My breathing quickened when opening emails, and my heart raced whenever I recalled the manager's threats. I stood at a crossroads, flee to protect myself or confront the situation to defend the truth and my honor. Each step in the office became an internal battle where fear and courage continuously clashed. Then, amid the chaos, a fragile yet persistent determination began to form. No matter the fear, I would not step back. The truth was mine, and I had to defend it regardless of the price I would pay. One night, my phone rang. It was my manager, calling after hours. "If you don't fix it immediately—" "I will!" The sentence was left unfinished, yet the meaning was clear. The tone broke to no negotiation. Sleep vanished, my body tensed, and the boundary between work and life completely disappeared. Then the second incident occurred. A colleague, under subtle pressure, was forced to provide false information about the project error. This fabricated story quickly became a chain of evidence against me. Suspicion seeped through whispered conversations in the office, and suddenly, I was monitored not just for my work, but for something I hadn't caused. Every colleague's glance felt loaded, every question a trap. The mental burden was relentless and ruthless. At first, I lost sleep, lost appetite, and my body reacted as if under siege. Stress mounted, exhaustion became constant. Even minor mistakes, real or imagined, felt like looming disasters. The office, once merely a demanding environment, now became a pressure chamber testing both mind and body. The breaking point hit like lightning. One morning, I received a document that made my heart leap out of my chest, a court summons. The company was suing me for causing significant financial damage. These words, absurd yet official, confirmed that the simmering tension had erupted into full-blown conflict. Alongside the psychological and physical pressure, I began organizing evidence like a military strategist. I printed every email, arranged them chronologically, highlighted every warning sent, every proposed fix ignored by management. A detailed timeline emerged, connecting all events and showing who knew what and when. Every scrap of paper, every note became a weapon against unreasonable accusations. During preparation, trust in colleagues was tested. Some refused to cooperate, gave vague answers, or avoided details when I inquired about incidents. The feeling of isolation resurfaced. Not only did I face the company, but I also had to rely on myself to defend the truth. The lawyer emphasized each detail, his tone grave. Even the smallest evidence can determine the outcome. One email, one report, one ignored warning, they all matter. These words kept me awake at night, checking every file, every record, every digital signature, as if each action measured the life of my reputation. Every passing minute in the office became a lesson in strategy. I noted every call, every interaction, even every time a colleague stepped out. The actions were marked and recorded. Minor details, usually forgotten, now became invaluable evidence that could turn the tide in the courtroom. Meanwhile, inner conflict deepened. I asked myself, did I make a mistake I don't remember? A small question, yet it constricted my chest every time I thought of it. The desire to flee arose, yet the resolve to defend the truth remained firm. The tension, like a taut string, made my heart race whenever I opened emails or reviewed evidence. Yet I realized that this meticulous preparation was the very thing that would allow me to face the upcoming legal battle with confidence. In that moment, fear mingled with a strange clarity. The path ahead was difficult, but retreat was no longer an option. This was no longer about avoiding conflict. It was about standing up for the truth, defending dignity, and honoring the countless hours of devoted work that had gone unrecognized. Despite the threats, a spark of determination emerged. This lawsuit was not merely a legal battle, it was a test of self-respect and perseverance. I resolved to confront it head-on, compiling every report, patch, and evidence of diligence. The goal was no longer to appease a hostile manager, but to uphold a principle: hard work, honesty, and professional responsibility should never be punished. As the first trial approached, every step felt heavy. Emails were scrutinized, phone calls handled with care. Every interaction in the office became a chess move, each step calculated to prevent misinterpretation. Beneath this strategy, anger and indignation lingered. How could a company I had devoted myself to act so coldly and ruthlessly? Yet even amidst fear and anxiety, a new sense of purpose arose. I was no longer merely a software engineer, I had become a guardian of my principles. Every carefully documented email, meeting, and bug report became a weapon in the fight to reclaim my reputation. The stage was set, the pieces moved. The initial conflict had escalated into a legal storm. The road ahead promised uncertainty and confrontation, yet for the first time, I felt control. I could not dictate their actions, but I could ensure that my truth could not be denied. Tension hung in the air. Each day was a reminder of what was at stake. The office seemed smaller, emails more threatening, the shadow of the lawsuit growing with each hour. But amid fear and exhaustion, a single thought anchored me. Whatever the cost, I would pursue this to the end, for my own honor and for the principle that dedication and integrity should never be condemned. Worry mingled with resolve. The small flame of conflict had grown into a blaze, and within that fire I realized the truth. This battle was unavoidable, and it belonged to me. The coming days would test every boundary I had ever known, pushing me into uncharted territory, where courage would be the only compass. Amid the twisted emails, suspicious glances, and court summons in my hands, I could not help but ask myself, will the effort I've put in ever be acknowledged? This question was not merely about reputation or income, it was a challenge to my sense of self-worth. The hours spent reviewing code, detecting bugs, and warning of risks were all part of my professional pride. I reminded myself that work was not just about completing tasks, it was about upholding ethics and responsibility. Every line of code, every report I sent carried a core principle: responsibility and honesty should never be punished. Meeting with my lawyer wasn't just a review of documents, it was an intricate training session, where I had to steel myself for every possible scenario. My lawyer looked at me sternly and said, "We're going to simulate situations the opposing side might throw at us. Don't deny every email, dispute every warning. How will you respond?" We began the practice. Every question from my lawyer felt like a test of endurance. If they claim your report was mistimed, how will you respond? If a colleague suddenly changes their testimony, what can you prove? I had to imagine every possible question from the other side, answer quickly and clearly, leaving no gaps. My lawyer emphasized a crucial point. Our counter strategy must be subtle, not just based on documents. We'll leverage emails they tried to hide, present witnesses strategically, and prepare unexpected evidence that could turn the case at the last minute. Every detail is a trump card. You must know when to play it. I nodded, feeling a mixture of fear and excitement. Even practicing these scenarios taught me not just how to counter legal maneuvers, but also how to remain calm, think on my feet, and analyze each of the opponent's moves. Each session was like a small battle, gradually building an intellectual armor to face the upcoming trial. Gathering evidence consumed all my time and mental energy. Every day, I printed emails, sorted reports, and compiled detailed files meticulously. But obstacles quickly appeared. Some critical documents had vanished from the company system, either deleted or lost. Some colleagues, under subtle yet unmistakable pressure, began to waver. Their words became cautious, calculated, sometimes contradictory. I realized that the higher I looked, the more tangled the web of deceit became. Defending the truth would require navigating a maze of fear, loyalty, and lies. The pressure was not just about numbers or paperwork, it seeped into every heartbeat, every breath. Holding crucial documents, my hands trembled, sweat soaking each finger. My heart raced, each beat echoing through my chest, up my neck and back again. My head throbbed from sleepless nights, the cold light of my computer screen piercing my eyes, sharpening everything to an almost painful clarity. The subtle hum of office background keyboard clicks, whispered conversations, became part of the relentless tension. Sleep was rare and fragmented. When I finally drifted off, nightmares struck. I saw my boss or colleagues tearing up files, deleting emails, or altering testimonies. Every awakening left my heart pounding, throat dry, and a lingering unease that clung like an invisible shadow. Even a few quiet moments in the office heightened my sensitivity to every sound, from rustling paper to footsteps in the hallway. All these small details, sweat, Light, sound, merged into a tangible pressure, making me realize that preparing for the trial was not only an intellectual or legal challenge, but a test of body and mind. While reviewing old emails, a discovery made my chest tighten. A longtime colleague, who had once sworn to support me all the way, had been coerced into signing a document denying all the warnings I had sent. Their signature lay there silently, like a heavy curtain hiding the truth. Anger and disappointment gripped me. Trust I had placed in them had become evidence against me. Then, another shocking revelation: an email from a superior revealed they had known about the software flaw for months, yet deliberately stayed silent, even obstructing remedial measures. The cold text on the screen read like a sudden confession: "We will monitor the situation. Do not act hastily." Every word weighed heavily, showing that all my prior efforts had been intentionally undermined. Time flowed quickly. Each passing day made proving the truth even harder. I felt mounting pressure. It was no longer just about preparing files or evidence, but racing against time to prevent critical proof from being erased or manipulated. My heartbeat quickened, hands shook holding printed documents. My mind raced through all the possible maneuvers the other side could employ at the last minute. Anxiety seeped into every rare moment of sleep, with dreams of colleagues or superiors destroying evidence before my eyes, compounding my physical and mental exhaustion. These hidden truths heightened the tension, but also shaped the legal strategy. They were both a challenge and an opportunity. My lawyer reminded me that now the hidden emails, the witnesses who could be influenced, and the concealed documents would become the sharpest weapons. Every discovery was a crucial piece, but also a reminder that time waits for no one and any mistake could be costly. Amid the chaos, one revelation shook me while reviewing old correspondence. I stumbled upon an email my manager had deliberately hidden for months. It confirmed that I had promptly reported the software flaw and suggested corrective measures that were ignored. This wasn't mere oversight, it was hidden evidence that could reverse the situation. This knowledge became a beacon of hope amid the storm, yet reminded me of the depth of deception I was facing. Internal tension at the company became more pronounced. One morning, a phone call came unexpectedly. A trusted colleague's voice trembled, barely steady. "They know you're preparing for court. Be careful." Those few words cut through my spine like icy wind, making every effort to focus on the case sting with renewed unease. Shortly after, an anonymous email appeared in my inbox. The message was brief, yet heavy. "If you want peace, give up." Only a few words, but their weight surpassed any document in my case file. Pressure was no longer only legal. It came from a network of surveillance and subtle threats. I had to prepare evidence while remaining cautious of every gesture, every call, every email. Each day, the company ceased to be just a workplace. It became an invisible arena where every glance could be surveillance. Every word turned into evidence or a tactical strike. Amid the papers and reports, the feeling of being watched, isolated, and coerced hung constantly, making internal tension inseparable from the legal battle. At home, peace was elusive. Family conversations carried worry and hesitation. Sitting at the dinner table, my siblings cautiously asked, "Are you sure about suing? It will take so much time and pressure." My parents exchanged anxious glances. I looked down at my hands, swollen from long nights of note-taking and strategy planning. "If I don't do it, who will protect me?" I answered firmly, though beneath it lay silent despair. No showiness, just the recognition that giving up was not an option. My family nodded. Their faces showed resignation mixed with quiet admiration. Their silent support comforted me, yet reminded me that this fight was not just professional, it was deeply personal. Days passed, the pressure increasingly tangible. The wall calendar seemed to mock me, each day marked in red ink, counting down to the trial. Sleep became fragmented. Each night I lay awake, replaying scenarios, weighing decisions, imagining objections, anticipating traps. Emails, phone calls, even ordinary office conversations transformed into subtle threats of potential evidence. Every interaction weighed heavily on my chest, as if the world itself had shrunk into my office. Yet amidst the overwhelming tension, a rhythm of preparation emerged. I created a timeline. Every warning sent, every ignored suggestion, every unusual system change. I annotated colleagues' behavior, noting contradictions and potential witnesses. Each sheet of paper became a soldier in the army. I was assembling to defend my integrity. Organizing and recording meticulously brought a strange sense of control amid chaos. However, hidden conflicts persisted, like shadows over every meeting and email. Knowing some managers deliberately concealed truth, manipulated testimonies, or threatened witnesses weighed heavily. It wasn't just about winning or losing in court. It was about asserting the truth I knew within a web of lies designed to crush me. The combination of fear and determination created continuous tension. Every decision, call, keystroke felt like a silent duel. And then came moments of quiet reflection. Alone in the stillness of night, I asked myself, am I ready? Can I remain clear-headed when everyone around me seeks to distort the truth? Every internal answer strengthening my resolve, even when fatigue threatened to overwhelm me. I realized this was not just reclaiming justice, it was protecting principles, proving that truth and diligence can survive even in the most hostile environment. Time until the trial became a relentless clock. Each morning, the alarm sounded like a reminder that pressure waits for no one. The wall calendar, each circled day, counted down, emphasizing that every passing minute was an opportunity for others to prepare, conceal, or manipulate evidence. Mental strain intensified with each mark, heartbeat quickened, hands shook over important files, and worry seeped into every moment. The nights before the trial stretched longer than usual. At midnight, the harsh glow of the computer screen hurt my eyes as I reviewed files, reread emails, and checked reports repeatedly. Each witness was reviewed one last time, every suspicious detail carefully noted, as if preparing for a battle where mistakes were not permitted. Even my briefcase for court became part of the ritual, every file arranged strategically, pens, notepads, everything ready. Preparation became almost ceremonial, because once inside the courtroom, there would be no chance to fix errors or overlook details. Every final moment before the trial was charged with tension, anxiety intertwined with determination. Time was not just a date on a calendar, it became both ally and adversary, urging me to perfect everything while reminding me that any error could cost my career and credibility. Finally, the decisive moment arrived. The last files were printed, marked, cross-checked. Witness lists confirmed. Every precaution, every scenario considered. Anxiety and anticipation coexisted, sharpening alertness and careful planning. The courtroom atmosphere was tense, stretched tight like a guitar string, with blinding sunlight streaming through the tall windows, casting sharp streaks of light across the polished wooden floor. The rustle of papers echoed in the silence. Every gesture of organizing documents, every whisper from the clerk seemed amplified, intensifying the mounting pressure. The jury sat still, their eyes focused and tense, making my heartbeat pound in sync with the stress spreading throughout the room. I took a deep breath, steadying my mind, feeling the worn surface of the file in my hands. The smell of ink and paper reminded me that this was not just a legal case, it was a testament to perseverance and integrity. The opposing lawyer glanced at me with a mocking smile, like a predator testing its prey, slowly flipping through his notes, emphasizing each passing second as a challenge to shake my composure. "Objection," he called out, pointing at the stack of documents I had submitted. "Your Honor, this evidence is invalid, incomplete, and unverified." I looked at my own attorney and caught a subtle nod, almost imperceptible, yet filled with the reassurance of countless hours of preparation. Every paper in my hands had been meticulously organized, reminding me that careful preparation could be the most powerful weapon in the courtroom. The judge adjusted his glasses, his gaze sweeping the room before landing on me. "Is this evidence authentic?" he asked firmly with authority. "Yes, Your Honor. This is the original email directly from the company's server," my attorney replied, calm yet resolute. The murmurs among the audience immediately quieted, a small flicker of hope igniting within me, but still accompanied by anxiety over the unexpected turns ahead. The defendant paled, eyes wide with astonishment. This can't be," he stammered, voice cracking. When the witness stepped up to testify, the entire courtroom fell so silent that the sound of paper turning rang clearly. My lawyer rose, eyes focused, voice steady yet sharp as a blade. "Can you explain why the email sent on March 12 highlights a warning, yet no action was taken until March 18? The defendant flinched, eyes wide, tongue seemingly tied. Well, that is," a choked sob echoed lightly, drawing everyone's attention. My lawyer continued, each word deliberate yet intense. "So, if the warning existed, why were your actions entirely contrary to the email's information? Can you provide any reason for the delay or for ignoring this data?" As my lawyer stood, he activated the projector. The screen lit up, clearly displaying the chain of emails, a timeline map, and a comparison chart of actions. Light from the screen reflected in the jury's eyes, across the papers and the defendant's face. Every line, arrow, and color box on the chart seemed to tell its own story, each action exposed, each ignored warning vividly revealed. "You can see," my attorney pointed to the email chain, voice confident, "that every warning sent every time it was ignored is recorded and verified. This is not speculation, it is objective data, indisputable." The timelines on the display allowed everyone in the room to immediately understand the relationship between actions and consequences. The defendant lowered his gaze, sweat trickling down his forehead, eyes darting across the charts as if seeking an escape, but finding none. The audience gasped, holding their breath with every detail. Each element on the screen acted as a puzzle piece of the larger picture, making the courtroom climax vivid and highly dramatic. The jury leaned forward, eyes sharp as spotlights. The spectators were silent. Each passing second felt doubled in tension. The defendant trembled, gripping the edge of the table, sweat streaming down his face. The witness, looking directly at the defendant, continued. This email was preserved on the server and has not been altered. It accurately reflects the timing of the warning and the subsequent actions. I confirm that nothing has been changed. The entire courtroom seemed frozen. The defendant fumbled for words, while the opposing lawyer's gaze tracked every movement, every breath. The contradiction was clear on his face. Prior statements directly opposed objective data, leaving him publicly embarrassed. The opposing counsel froze, the confident smile gone, replaced by tight jaws and furrowed brows. He whispered urgently to his client, but the momentum had already shifted irreversibly. The looming threat, once present, now faltered, like a fortress eroded by relentless waves. My heart raced, palms sweating, anxiety, suspense, and hope colliding in a chaotic storm. Every revelation was a lifeline, yet the fear of surprises remained. My legs trembled slightly beneath the table, muscles tense from hours of stress and sleeplessness, yet amid the fear, there was exhilaration, perseverance, and integrity could prevail. The judge leaned forward, eyes sharp. "Can this witness confirm that all testimony is accurate?" The witness nodded firmly. "Yes, Your Honor. I have personally verified every email and report. Nothing has been altered or omitted." A strong exhale cut across the courtroom. The defendant's composure shattered. My lawyer stepped forward. "Your Honor, these emails, along with the verified testimony, prove that the defendant deliberately ignored safety warnings and concealed them. The evidence is clear and indisputable." The defendant tried to interject, but the judge raised a hand. "Silence. Continue with the case," his gaze unwavering. As the witness handed over additional documents, I realized the significance of what had just occurred. Months of gathering evidence, countless sleepless nights, strategizing, everything converged at this pivotal moment. Each previously overlooked piece of data had become a sword slicing through layers of deception. The burden of betrayal by colleagues, whether coerced or threatened, gradually lifted, each false statement exposed through objective evidence. My heartbeat accelerated, but I breathed steadily, focusing on every word, every reaction I witnessed. I was no longer merely defending a claim. I was proving unacknowledged effort and courage. The courtroom had become a stage. I was both performer and audience, sensing the weight of every gaze. My attorney outlined the sequence of events, emails sent, warnings ignored, attempts to conceal the truth. The jury followed closely. The previously hazy atmosphere now became clear, exposing the defendant's calculated actions. The judge paused, reviewing the documents. "This chain of evidence leaves little room for doubt," he murmured. I felt both relief and tension. The truth had been acknowledged, but the verdict had yet to be delivered. In that silent moment, a flash of insight struck me. If the courtroom were a battlefield, every minor detail I had meticulously tracked was now an arrow piercing the shield of deception. I envisioned the new scenarios ahead, how my lawyer could combine testimony with digital evidence, how the jury would react when comparing proof, and the final steps that could tilt the verdict entirely in our favor. I quickly adjusted my mindset, using this tension as strength. I imagined every overlooked detail coming alive, every answer clarifying the shadows in the case. Each email, report, and log became a link, forming a complete picture the opposition could not deny. These breakthrough thoughts sharpened my focus like never before. I resolved that once the jury left the room, I would proactively prepare the next moves, emphasize evidence consistency, expose concealment efforts, and leverage the witness's story as a catalyst to make everyone realize the severity of the matter. The courtroom space became so vivid that every minor detail contributed to the mounting pressure. When the defendant's hands trembled on his files, the rustle of papers mirrored his internal panic. Sunlight streaming through windows shifted with the audience's movements, creating shimmering streaks on the polished floor. Every step, every creak of a chair, every page turn seemed to accelerate the heartbeat in the room. I felt the tension spreading through me, my palms damp, heartbeat racing, legs trembling lightly beneath the table. The smell of old paper, ink, and office coffee drifted in, keeping me alert and focused. Even the tiniest sounds, the drop of a pencil, whispered conversations among clerks. The defendant's rapid breathing were magnified in my mind. As the jury took a recess, all eyes turned to me. I realized the power did not lie solely in evidence, but also in how I managed the courtroom's emotional energy. A glance, a small gesture could influence the psychology of those watching. I used every moment, creating pauses to allow the jury to reflect on each detail, every breath conveying the message that the truth was unfolding before their eyes. I decided to employ a few more breakthrough tactics, request the witness to assist the jury in comparing data, prepare visual illustrations of the email and report chains, and plan to highlight contradictions in the defendant's statements. I knew that the courtroom fell into a silence so complete that I could hear every breath I took. The footsteps of the jury echoed across the wooden floor, each one emphasizing the rapid pounding of my heart. Light from the windows fell on the tense faces, making time seem to stand still. I felt my hands grow cold, palms slick with sweat, yet in this moment, all my thoughts were focused on a single question. What will they decide? The judge adjusted his glasses, leaned forward, and opened the file in front of him. The stifling atmosphere made me want to hold my breath. The rustle of papers, the faint scraping sounds, the small knock of the gavel against the desk, all blended with the rhythm of my anxious heartbeat. Then he read aloud, "Damages awarded to the plaintiff, $900,000, $900,000. I stood frozen for a few seconds, feeling as if I had just emerged from a long storm. All the pressure, sleepless nights, and insults seemed to vanish in that instant. A genuine smile finally appeared on my face, mingling relief with a happiness that was hard to describe. At the very moment the judge announced the verdict, my heart seemed to skip a beat, then raced so wildly it was hard to breathe. Relief flooded me, but simultaneously, a quiet anger simmered beneath the surface. Finally, those who had caused me pain would face the consequences. I recalled every threatening call, every cruel email, every contemptuous glance from colleagues, memories that now appeared vividly, making me feel both hurt and satisfied. The sense of liberation was overwhelming, as if an invisible burden had been lifted from my shoulders. Yet a subtle conflict remained. I was happy that justice had been served, but anxiety about long-term consequences lingered. Would the company retaliate? Would other executives or shareholders make things difficult after the verdict? The mix of exhilaration and apprehension created emotions that were both intense and fragile, making me realize that this victory was both a destination and the beginning of a new journey. In that moment, the sunlight streamed across the desk, the verdict glimmered under the lights, and the sound of the gavel echoed, symbols of liberation but also reminders that justice is a long path, and emotional scars do not vanish with a court decision. The opposing side was completely different. They were silent, faces pale, hands trembling as they clutched their files. Their lawyer pressed his lips together, eyes flashing helplessness and confusion. A few staff members exchanged glances, sighing as if they understood that this shock would not end with the money. Immediately after the trial, public reaction exploded. Headlines screamed, "Determined employee wins $900,000 after workplace harassment case." On social media, posts continuously shared my story, with thousands of supportive comments, empathy, and even similar stories from others. My family called and messaged nonstop, expressing pride and overflowing emotion. Friends and colleagues sent congratulations, some even astonished by the inner strength they had never realized I possessed. My former company also trembled at this news. Many colleagues whispered anxiously, fearing they could be the next victims if they did not stand up for themselves. Some senior staff appeared flustered by the media, and certain executives had to negotiate with shareholders to mitigate reputational damage. The court's decision was based on solid evidence. Emails, messages, work logs, and colleague testimonies painted a clear picture of the ongoing harassment I endured. The $900,000 not only compensated for emotional and professional damage, but also sent a deterrent message. Such behavior would be dealt with seriously. Immediately after the verdict, while joy had not yet subsided, another shock emerged. A different employee, previously silent about harassment for years, came forward publicly. She said that my case had inspired her to speak out, drawing even more attention and plunging the company into a new wave of trouble. Social media exploded with posts, videos, and comments emphasizing that this victory was not only mine, but a starting point for wider changes. The company, panicked by public and legal pressure, attempted to appeal. However, reviewing internal records revealed a series of previously undisclosed serious management errors. Public outrage grew, shareholder confidence faltered, and pressure mounted on senior executives. Beyond the media and social networks, human rights organizations, labor associations, and anti-harassment groups immediately stepped into support, turning my story into a case study to inspire and warn others. Articles, seminars, and discussion sessions highlighted that this victory was not merely personal, but a voice for the community. Former colleagues, witnessing the outcome, began protecting themselves more vigilantly. Some resigned, others came forward with reports of similar behavior they had endured silently. The workplace atmosphere became tense, but through my story, people saw the power of perseverance and justice. From a personal triumph, influence spread to the wider community, showing that one courageous action could trigger systemic change and inspire others. Yet this victory was not the end. Soon after the trial, a twist emerged. My former company tried to appeal, but the review of the case files revealed even more serious management failures, from deleted records to unrecorded harassment allegations. Some shareholders and executives were publicly exposed, leading to internal crises. While they issued public apologies, yet another shock arose. More employees had suffered harassment but had never dared to speak out. I watched the headlines, social media, and endless calls from family, sensing the ripple effect of truth and justice. This victory, though sweet, was only a step in a long journey. Post-trial events raised new questions, and I knew the story was far from over. A letter, a new file, or an undisclosed testimony could surface at any time, pulling me back into the whirlwind of truth and justice. This moment etched itself into my mind. Justice had triumphed, but persistence and vigilance remained necessary. No one should think that winning a case automatically ends all consequences. And in the light of this victory, I realized that the fight to protect oneself and the truth sometimes lasts far longer. Then the trial itself. Even with the verdict delivered, I could not stop thinking about the days ahead. Justice had won, but social and psychological consequences remained. I began to wonder, could I ever return to my former work environment if needed? How strained would my relationships with colleagues remain? And how would my career progress after such a shock? With public attention following every step, every decision now required careful consideration, choosing a new job, protecting myself, and maintaining relationships with colleagues I once trusted. Vigilance had become an essential part of daily life. I realized that the court victory only resolved the present. The emotional wounds, workplace suspicions, and latent pressures would linger, requiring time and wisdom to overcome. This mixture of freedom and caution made me understand that the journey for justice is never merely a legal event. It is a long process, encompassing rebuilding trust, safeguarding oneself, and preparing for all possible consequences. As the courtroom settled into silence, a wave of relief washed over me, mingled with a profound exhaustion. The long nights of stress, the anxious hours spent replaying every moment in my mind, the uncertainty and fear, they all seemed to lift in that single instant. My heart, which had pounded relentlessly during the trial, gradually slowed, and I felt a physical lightness, as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Tears formed unbidden in my eyes, a mixture of joy, release, and the undeniable acknowledgement of everything I had endured. A quiet smile crept across my face, soft, genuine, and long overdue. In that moment, I truly understood that justice, while hard-won, was real and tangible. The lesson was clear. Justice does not arrive uninvited. It requires persistence, courage, and the willingness to pay a price that few anticipate. Looking back, I realized that my journey was as much about personal growth as it was about legal victory. Every challenge, every discouraging call, every dismissive glance I had endured had shaped the resilience I carried into that courtroom. And yet, even with the verdict in my favor, I knew that the path forward would not be entirely smooth. The world outside the courtroom still held uncertainties, relationships with former colleagues, perceptions within the industry, and the ongoing question of how to navigate my career with the knowledge that I had stood my ground. Victory had arrived, but it was nuanced, sweet, yet layered with caution and introspection. To anyone watching, I want to emphasize this: never remain silent in the face of injustice. Speaking up is daunting, but silence only empowers wrongdoing. Actions have consequences, and those who misuse power will inevitably face them. My story, I discovered, did more than secure my own vindication. It inspired others. Colleagues who had endured harassment in silence found the courage to share their own experiences, emboldened by the precedent that standing up could lead to real change. Courage, I realized, was contagious. One voice can spark a movement, and one act of persistence can ripple outward, affecting lives far beyond what we might imagine. Yet, just as I began to feel the first stirrings of closure, an unexpected development arrived. A single envelope, unmarked and sealed, appeared at my doorstep. Its contents suggested truths I had not yet uncovered, details that could reshape my understanding of the events, perhaps even influence future legal action. The reminder was stark: no battle is ever entirely finished. Even as one chapter closes, new questions emerge, and the pursuit of justice can continue in ways we do not anticipate. This subtle twist, while uncertain, reignited a sense of purpose, a readiness to face whatever truths might still lie ahead. Holding that envelope, I felt both anticipation and resolve. The courtroom had affirmed my fight, but the real work protecting truth, rebuilding trust, and guarding against future injustices was ongoing. Justice is not merely a verdict. It is a continuous commitment to vigilance, integrity, and courage. And as I stood there, I knew that my journey, though momentarily victorious, was far from over. I thought the battle was over, until a mysterious envelope arrived at my doorstep.